Should you make audiobooks? Well, if you're an author, I'd highly encourage it. Everyone's listening to audiobooks these days. Well, nearly everyone. And, we thought with the recent pandemic, people aren't commuting as much and aren't listening as much, but they're listening as much as ever, if not more, because they're out and about, they're working in the yard, they're exercising, they're in the car with their family. It's a great time to make an audiobook. And in about the next 15, 20 minutes, I just want to share a few attributes. What does it take to make an audiobook? How is it put together? What are some resources, that kind of thing. So, I've picked a little slide here just to kind of show you a few statistics on audiobooks, but what I really want you to see is that far right column and just see the percentages. Now, they're kind of low, but in the comparison of other things, it's pretty good. A lot more people are listening to audiobooks. It tends to be the younger crowd, it tends to be the more well-educated, and it tends to be the higher income earners, and those in urban areas. So those are some things to consider as you're pursuing audiobooks. And this is just a few of my sales that I noticed, and they aren't really great sales, but there's enough to get a little sense of the comparisons. And the far right column, those two highlighted, I noticed that two of my titles had gotten a significant amount of audiobooks. As a matter of fact, as I'm recording this in July of 2020, I'm sold more audiobooks this month than anything else. So it's definitely something I'm highly interested in. Who sells audiobooks? Well, you can still rent them from the library. You can get them on different apps, or some still have old school CDs you can rent. You might even find a cassette tape or two, although I don't know what you'd play it on. But to the right just shows a lot of the different places that sell audiobooks. Audible's the biggie, but Amazon, Google, Chirp's becoming a big player in this as well. Who makes them? Well, the big one is ACX, Audiobook Creation Exchange, which is an arm of Audible. And if you're an author and you have you're on Amazon, you know what KDP Select is. Well, ACX is like the KDP Select for Audible. And that's where you go and make that book. They'll match you up with narrators. You can create your own, that kind of thing. Find a Way Voices is becoming a big player in all this, or traditional publishers may work it out for you and set you up in a studio. How are they made? Well, our friend Scott Brick here, who's considered has kind of the golden voice, and if you've listened to audiobooks, you've probably heard him before. They're done by a voice actor who's usually well-trained on some sort of recording software. And over to the right just kind of shows you a little sample of a little behind the scenes of how the sausage is made. How much are they? They're not cheap, but there's some ways around that. Now, typically, it's very important you understand per finished hour. So, just to make the numbers easier, let's take a 50,000 word book. An audiobook is typically read, not everybody, but typically read at about 155 words a minute or 9,300 words an hour. So, a 50,000 word book is going to be about 5.5 hours. Now, to get one of those hours done, though, you have to understand all the work a narrator has to do. First of all, they've got to do all the work it takes to get equipment and set up and get their business started. So you have that. If they might have to audition for your book, and let's say you award them the deal. They've got to pre-read that book, probably more than once. They've got to do highlights for character voices if it's fiction. They have to learn pronunciations, of something that's not familiar to them. Then they have to record it, and it's not just a straight read. An hour of an audiobook doesn't mean they read it in an hour. It probably took them twice as long, because they have to stop. They make a mistake. They have to do what's called punching, where they go back and a little bit and fix that. Then afterwards, they have to edit it. They have to do proof. Just like we have proofreading, we have proof listening. And they have what are called pickups, and that's when they send it back to the author, and the author says, in chapter 7 at 1 minute and 42 seconds, you said John should have been Mark, whatever. There's something that has to be fixed. So a 5 or 6 hour audiobook might take, one finished hour might take 5 or 6 hours for an experienced person, or 10 hours for a brand new person. So keep that in mind. Okay, so these are just sample numbers. Let's say a narrator says, I'm going to charge you $300 per finished hour. That means that 5-hour book is going to cost $1,500. But again, you can now see all the work that went into it. To continue this, there's other ways to get this done other than just paying, a narrator directly, but that's certainly one of the best ways to do it. Traditional publishing may not cost you anything. Your publisher may cover the cost of it. On ACX, the Audible arm, they have something called the royalty share option, where you just put your audiobook out there for auditions, and narrators agree to do all the work for no upfront cost, and you share royalties for 7 years. And if you have to have it exclusive to Audible, so you're splitting that 40%. If you just pay them straight up per finished hour, that's what we just got to talking about. You could see some on the real low end might be $1,500. They could be up to $3,500 for that same 5 hours worth of work. And then if you get someone like Scott Brick or a C-list actor, it could be $10,000 and up. And who knows how much they charge? It could be quite a bit. You want, Tom Cruise to read your audiobook, it might cost you $1 million. Who knows? And there's some combo deals out there you'll see. And there's DIY. If you feel like you have the voice, you can do everything from learn all the software and learn all the technical specifications that go into it, and they aren't easy, but it can be done. Then you can get that done. And, if you're willing to put the money out there, or you can buy studio time and you go to a studio and you hire them to just set you up. You just read it, they direct you through it, and they edit it and they master it. That's a pretty cool deal if you can do that. And then there's maybe one more little option where you have the equipment to record and a place to record, and you have a director that records you from their location. And they just guide you, and they kind of coach you through it, and then they edit at the end. So lots of ways to get it done. Okay, working with the narrator, how do you find them? Google. They're out there. There's lots of sites like ACX that will match you up with narrators. Word of mouth, one of the things I suggest is go on Audible and just listen to samples. Look in your genre, see who's recording, and listen to some of those samples and see what you like. What kind of voice are you looking for? Then typically what you'll do is you'll put it out for auditions. And you don't want to make these narrators read 5 pages, okay? They need to read, a few minutes. If you have a lot of character voices, you might want to pick something that has 3 or 4 character voices to kind of get their range. That's a good thing to have. And but once they read the audition, you want to make sure you're real clear to everybody that auditions are over and turn that thing off, because there's nothing worse than a narrator working on an audition to find out it's already been closed. You want to give good feedback to them. Now, all these narrators are going to have demos. You can go to their website and listen to some of their work as well. And you have to think about, what do you, if you have a lot of character voices, are you okay with a male speaking as a female voice? Or do you think your book's better read by a female? Or do you think you have a certain sound you want, and there's a certain person, maybe it has an urban sound to them, or maybe they're from a certain region of Europe that you like. You just have to think about these things. And keep in mind that, a lot of things can be outsourced. The editing can be outsourced. If there's a very specific voice for one part, maybe your narrator can help find someone there. Do you want music added? That's kind of not really normal in audiobooks, except maybe at the opening of the book or the opening of the chapter. But don't get fixated on music. Most audiobooks don't even have it. Most people don't care. And also, just realize that narrators, there are so many scams out there chasing them right now, trying to get them to take the bait. So if they seem like they're really doing a lot of due diligence on you, just understand that they're just doing their job. That's normal. And it's important to remember that they are the experts in narration, okay? You're hiring them, you need to trust them to do what they do. They also need to remember this book's your baby. You worked really hard on it, and that's kind of the good tension that needs to rest. That each of you are in your expertise. With fiction, if you can give them like a character profile, that's huge. If you've written that up, that's a great thing for them to have, and make sure they understand what accents. If something in the book, maybe people who read that genre realize there's some humor or something special about that, or some kind of inflection, you might want to point those things out to them. And on nonfiction, they might need to know if there's like a certain word you want emphasized or certain pronunciations. You give all that to them ahead of time. This is all done at the front end. because what they're going to do is they're going to give you a 15-minute recording. Maybe the first 15 minutes of the book, that's kind of normal. Or if there's an area of the book with a lot of those character voices, maybe it's that 15. And once you listen to that 15 and you're happy, then typically what happens is you're done. You just sit back and you let them do their thing. That's kind of the ideal way to do it. There are some narrators who'd rather record a chapter and have you listen and provide feedback. If that's what they want to do and you're okay with that, more power to both of you. Just be careful. Don't nitpick them. Don't. Some people want all the breath sounds taken out. If you want every breath sound taken out, you need to say that way ahead of time, because that's a lot of extra work. But breaths are normal. Some people think listening to audiobook without breaths is weird. The only, you just need to think of like true typos. Is there something that was just completely mispronounced, a word or something, or you heard a dog bark or something crazy like that? Okay, so if you have not listened to audiobooks before, I'd highly encourage you to go listen to some. And they used to be called books on tape, but it's kind of rare to find them in either form of digital now. Very easy to download on your phone. And go find some in your genre. You can listen to the first one for free. Of course, you want to choose one of my books first. Just kidding. But find one in your genre. The first one's free on Audible. Listen to it. There's a lot of sites out there that offer free audiobooks. They give you a free code in hopes for a review, or asking for a review if you can. And there's a lot of ways to listen to books. They all have speeds on them, like if you listen to podcasts, this. And you can listen to books at a faster speed if you want. Some still do kind of like the old radio style theatrical. And Whisper Sync is popular with some, and that's where you have the Kindle and the audio of the same book. And where you stop on Kindle, it'll pick up on audio and vice versa. It'll kind of hold your place there. Just a few wrap-up items here. Keep in mind the covers are a different size. Now, if you've got a book right now and you had a couple of covers done, you have the ebook cover, the PDF cover, you want to ask for the Audible cover as well, or the audiobook cover. And anytime you order those, always ask for that. All they kind of do is resize it into a square. And they do squares because that's kind of what went on the CD case, and that's why they still stick with that format. And I mentioned scams before. The scam also can happen to authors too, and what they're doing is they're taking your book, especially nonfiction, and they're slightly repackaging it and slightly rechanging the name, or maybe doing like a little short summary of it, and they don't have the rights to do that. And how they're able to get all these done, I really don't know, but man, there are hundreds and hundreds of them out there. Keep in mind, if you want to use ACX, remember that your book must be on sale for Amazon. I think it can be pre-sale on Amazon, but it's got to be listed on Amazon before ACX will let you, what they call, claim it and start making the audiobook. One cool feature about Audible is you can add a PDF. So let's say you have an appendix to your nonfiction book. That's not something normally it's going to get read, but you can have ACX add the PDF to the listener's library, and that's kind of a neat little thing for them to have. Is listening to an audiobook cheating? Some people feel that way. Whatever, they can feel that way. I've listened to about 50 of them a year for 25 years, and it's a great way to consume books. And so maybe it's better to read, but there's a lot of the books I've listened to that I probably got a lot better grasp on than trying to read it, because I was just relaxed and in my car. And romance is big. Audible has a special, like a membership group, or a sequence of way to get romance books in Audible, just because they're so big. So that's it. If you have questions, drop me a line. Thanks.